will hand this over to Sam Thumma, Arizona Court of Appeals, to introduce our speaker for today.
Thank you, Angela. And I hope everyone can hear, not me so much, but Mark. We're in for a treat. Mark Lanterman is a wizard, and I have seen him in action on many occasions, and we genuinely are in for a treat. He's the Chief Technology Officer of Computer Forensic Services, located in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul, although I think Mark would tell you it's more St. Paul than Minneapolis. But he's a previous member of the U.S. Secret Service Electronic Crimes Task Force, has taught widely and broadly to judicial audiences and others, including the United States Supreme Court. Always entertains, always scares me a little bit. My stomach hurts a little bit when I learn about what people are doing on the dark web. But let me turn it to Mark. He'll have about a half an hour with some questions then to follow. Easiest catch. Don't be another fish in the dark net. Mark, welcome to Rotary 100. We're delighted to have you here.
Thank you, Your Honor, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again. My only regret is that I couldn't be there with you. So again, thank you for this opportunity. I'm going to share some slides here. Coming into today's session, I wanted to put myself in your shoes. If I were you, what would I want to hear about? So these are the topics that I've chosen for us today. We're going to talk about phishing. And phishing, these are those scam emails that hopefully wind up in your junk folder, or better yet, in your deleted items bin. But the fact is, if I were going to attack you or your company or your organization, that's how I would do it. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about phishing. And then it seems as though every day there's another ransomware attack in the news. So how could I not talk about ransomware, especially when last October there was a pretty interesting development with respect to ransomware that I'll share with you. And then finally, I thought it would be interesting because, again, it seems as though every single day we hear about another data breach. And my thought is maybe at least some of you have never seen one. So I'm going to show you in real time a cyber attack, a data breach. I'm going to show you what the victim saw in real time. You're going to see how quickly an organization, which happened to be a city, was compromised. But before I get to phishing, I have to share with you my all-time favorite picture. I share this with everyone. A few years ago, I was really honored. I was asked to speak at one of the largest cybersecurity conferences in the country, and it was held in New York City at a big fancy facility. And I show up and I navigated my way to the sign-in desk, to pick up my name tag to remember who I was. And when I get to the registration desk, there's no one sitting there. So I have an unattended laptop at a cybersecurity conference. Can't make this up. So I look down and something gets my attention and I think, oh, I have to get a picture of this. At one of the largest cybersecurity conferences in the country, this slide became the opening slide of my keynote address to all 3,500 attendees. Candidly, I've not been invited back, but that's okay. The point is, and one takeaway today is you need to remember that hackers need our help. Hackers can't do what they do without our help. And sometimes, as in this case, we give them help without them even having to ask. But often the way that they get our help is by tricking us into clicking on links and opening attachments to emails. So this is known as phishing. And phishing, these are those scam emails that that odds are all of you receive on a daily basis. And this email happens to be my favorite example of a phishing attack. And it's an email purportedly from Google. Subject line is, someone has your password. Hi, so-and-so. Someone just used your password to try to sign into your Google account. It happened on Saturday. We here at Google, we are so tech savvy that we even log the IP address. Ooh. And we track these hackers back to the Ukraine. And we all know everyone in the Ukraine is a hacker, right? I mean, that's common knowledge, but it's okay because we here at Google, we saved your bacon. We stopped these Ukrainian hackers from accessing your data, your company's data, your client's data. We prevented that from happening, but now we need you to immediately change your password. To do so, click here. Now, hopefully after today, none of you would ever fall for this kind of a phishing scam. But the reason why this specific email is my favorite phishing example is because of the identity of the recipient. The recipient of this email was John Podesta. Now, you may remember John. John used to serve as Hillary Clinton's chief of staff. He also served as Bill Clinton's chief of staff during the Clinton presidency. This is the email that led to the leak of all Clinton campaign emails to WikiLeaks. This is the email that arguably influenced a US presidential election. And as though that wasn't bad enough, John's password was password. But it had a capital P, so I guess that made it all the more secure, right? So just remember, hackers need our help, and you need to be aware, you need to be thoughtful before you're tricked into helping them. And these attacks are not going away anytime soon because they make criminals a lot of money. Now, I'm based in Minneapolis, but in Minneapolis, there is a very successful privately held pharmaceutical company. Their CEO, the chief executive officer, travels to China. He's speaking at a pharmaceutical conference. The company is proud of their CEO, so they announce it on their website. Our CEO is speaking in China. So now the world knows where he is and what he's doing. While the CEO is in China, the CEO sends an email to the company's Chief Financial Officer, CFO. Hey, I'm in China. I'm at this conference. Everything is just fantastic. Beautiful country. Hey, CFO, I have come across a remarkable opportunity. I have discovered a young company here in China that is doing research 5 years ahead of anything we have ever seen. Now, CFO, you are the only person at the company who I trust with this information, so tell no one. But we are going to acquire this company. I need you today to wire $52 million, gulp, to this bank account in China. I will give you all of the details when I return to the country in 10 days. 10 days. 10 days is an eternity in the life of a wire transfer, right? I mean, heck, 10 minutes is an eternity. I'll give you all of the details when I return to the country in 10 days. The CFO, being the dutiful CFO that he once was, picks up the phone and calls the bank. Bank, it's the CFO. I need you to wire $52 million to this bank account in China. The bank goes, whatever, it's your money. I'll do as I'm told. And the bank sends $52 million. 10 long days go by, and the CEO finally returns to the country, returns to the company. Hey, boss, how was the conference? It was great. It was wonderful. Hey, boss, I'm hoping to get a few minutes with you today to talk about that, secret acquisition. What acquisition? Gulp. The acquisition that you told me to wire $52 million to close on 10 days ago, that acquisition. You did what? You're fired. Now you may think, oh, what a horrible story. It couldn't get any worse. Well, it is a horrible story, but it gets worse. How does it get worse, you ask? Well, the company sues their bank. And what happens when you sue? Well, when you sue, everything becomes public, right? So now the world knows you're an idiot who wired $52 million because you got an email telling you to wire $52 million. And the company's position was, you're a bank, you're a financial institution. You should have recognized that this was fraud. The bank's position, which I happen to agree with, was you used to be the CFO. You should have known that this was fraud. So one takeaway for you is whenever you're asked for anything of value, like $52 million, pick up the phone. I can't tell you how many financial fraud cases I get retained on because you have a buyer about to close on a retirement home or a vacation condo, and you get the wire instructions, and then like a minute later you get a follow-up email saying, oh, wait, I sent you the wrong wire. Send that money to this account instead. Pick up the phone, kind of like what President Reagan said, trust with verification. If you are ever asked to send anything of value, like $52 million, pick up the phone. If this CFO had picked up the phone, he would be a hero today. If this CFO had simply picked up the phone and said, hey, boss, got your email about this acquisition. Sounds like a great opportunity. 52 million, that's a lot of money. I just want to make sure that I have like the commas in the right place. I want to make sure that I have the bank account information right. If that CFO had simply picked up the phone to confirm these instructions, he would be a hero today instead of working the dog shift at Arby's, the overnight shift. And you know what? They don't even let him work the register. Like he's not even allowed to touch the money or make change or anything like that. Okay. So just be careful. Hackers need our help, and don't be the one to give it to them. And, I'm every day now, I'm reading about another ransomware attack, right? I mean, I was in Arizona just, I guess it was about 2 weeks ago today. And, I pick up the paper and talking about another ransomware attack. So I'll tell you, headlines like this, though, get me upset. And here's why. In Minnesota, we had a fella who was in a lawsuit with his old employer, and he lost. And this guy thought that the court system of Minnesota had conspired with his old boss to really stick it to him in this litigation, like judges have nothing better to do. And so what does this genius do? He goes online, and for $200, he hires a group of hackers to launch a cyber attack against Minnesota's entire court system. Our court system was knocked offline for 3 full days, a Wednesday, a Thursday, and a Friday, for $200. The reason why this headline gets me upset is, what kind of damage do you think I could cause if I had $600,000 worth of funding? What kind of harm do you think I could do to you in your companies if I had funding? Think about that. And if you read here, the hackers got into the city system when an employee clicked on an email link. Listen, in 95% of the cyber incidents that I assist with, they are almost always initiated successfully via email. Remember, clicking on links and downloading attachments. My advice to you is never, 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 never pay the ransom. Because when you pay the ransom, all that you are doing, well, you're doing two things. You're identifying yourself as a victim with spare change who's willing to pay the money, and they'll be back. Just because you pay them doesn't make you their friends. So they'll be back. And you are also funding cyber terrorism. This money is going to pay computer programmers to write the next generation of cyber attack tools that will be used against you, your colleagues, me, be used against everyone else. And I'll tell you, if your organization is ever in a position where you have no choice but to pay the ransom, you need to fire your IT team. And I say that because as an IT guy, we've known about these types of attacks. This is nothing new. Ransomware has been around for decades. Okay, we should be prepared. We should anticipate being the victim of a ransomware attack, and we should be prepared to recover from this. If we are not prepared as IT people, then we are not doing our jobs. And if we're not doing our jobs, what are you paying us for? So don't pay the ransom. And I'll tell you, it's not just me telling you not to pay the ransom. Last October 1st, less than a year ago, the Department of the Treasury issued this advisory stating that if an organization pays the ransom, you are funding cyber terrorism. You see, I think they attended one of my training sessions because the language sounds kind of familiar. They are telling, the Department of the Treasury is telling you, you will be subject to financial sanctions in a very unflattering newspaper headline if you pay the ransom. Now, granted, it's a business decision, but if you pay the ransom, you're taking a really bad situation and you're making it worse. And I'll tell you, not only are you subject to sanctions, but let's say if you have a cyber insurance policy and your insurance company pays that ransom, your insurance company is now subject to sanctions. I found out about this. I had not even heard about this opinion until last November, about a month after this was released, when one of my clients who paid ransom against my recommendations got hit with a $110,000 financial sanction because the Treasury found out about this. So don't pay the ransom. So again, almost every day now we're hearing about another cyber attack. So I thought it would be kind of cool if I show you what a cyber attack actually looks like. So here is the backstory. And, I come out of a law enforcement background, but my company, we're the crime lab, digital crime lab for 38 law enforcement agencies, including the U.S. Secret Service, where I come out of. But primarily we work with companies and law firms. But in this case, here's the background. A city in northern Minnesota has a relationship with the state of Minnesota to help. The state is trying to help the city identify grant money to promote tourism. And one day, the city finance manager, who happens to be the payroll person, gets this email from her counterpart at the state of Minnesota. The subject line says, reminder invoice. Good morning. Please find attached invoice that was missing. I can confirm that $50,956 has been received. 11/29/2018. Thanks and best regards. And the city finance person gets this email, has no idea why she'd be getting an invoice. So what does she do? Well, she does the exact same thing that you and I would do. She double clicks on the attachment, and you can see here the attachment has a file extension of .doc. So odds are this is a Word document. She double clicks on the Word document, opens the Word document. When she does that, she sees an error message. And I'm going to show you this error message here in a second. She sees an error message. What she doesn't see is in the background, a bunch of viruses get downloaded and completely compromise her system, allowing the hackers to take full control of her computer as though they're sitting at her desk. So she double clicks, sees an error message, doesn't see this nasty stuff happening in the background. What does the city employee do next? She takes this email and she forwards it to 70 of her coworkers. Hey guys, I'm having trouble opening this Word document. I keep getting an error. Can someone give me a hand? She single-handedly infected 70 of her coworkers' systems. So what did the hackers do next? Hackers do nothing. They sit and they wait and they read her emails for 5.5 months. And then one day on a Friday morning, 5.5 months later, the hackers make their move. The hackers, impersonating the city finance manager, sends an email to their bank. Now, remember, they've spent 5.5 months reading emails. So they know who's who. They know who the city is banking with and what kind, how do they speak to each other? So one Friday morning, the hackers make their move and they log in, they impersonate the city finance manager, and they send an email to the city's banker. Hey, Nate, how you doing? Hey, how are the wife and kids? Is your daughter enjoying college? Hey, I need a favor, and I'm really sorry to spring this on you at the last minute. But as you know, payroll comes out of the account today. I forgot to tell you, we have a new payroll processing vendor. Please do not send our $400,000 payroll to this bank account that we've been using for the past 12 years. Instead, send it to this other bank account for our new payroll processing vendor, the bank account set up by the hackers. The bank apparently never attended any of my training sessions. They didn't bother to pick up the phone. They sent the money to the hackers. That was on a Friday. Monday morning, the city finance manager starts getting complaining phone calls. Where's my direct deposit? I have bills to pay. I have kids to feed. Where's my paycheck? It was only then that the city realized that they were victims of a very sophisticated cyber attack. About $400,000. They contact federal law enforcement. Federal law enforcement contacts us. We get involved. We start collecting evidence. So what you're seeing here, this is the computer used by the city finance manager. One thing that I notice is that wallpaper. I think that was my Windows wallpaper when I was I think I was 14. Okay. The city is using an old, outdated version of Microsoft Windows. No antivirus, no anti-malware, nothing. So I thought it would be fun to show you this attack in real time. So when I count to 3, I'm going to open up that Word document and you're going to see the error message. But more importantly, you're going to see how quickly that city put itself in a position where it lost $400,000. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. An old version of Microsoft Word. That's it. The attack is over. That quickly, this is the error message that the city finance person saw. The error message reads, you are attempting to open a file that was created in an earlier version of Microsoft Office. The word attempting is spelled ATTEMTING. Vanna, I'd like to buy a consonant, please. That is how fast an organization can be compromised. So a couple of the most important takeaways. Be careful when you are clicking on links, when you are opening attachments, even if they are coming from trusted sources. Be careful. Do not share any personal information or financial information. And here's another thing, okay? The IRS doesn't really have a warrant for your arrest. And if you get a phone call to that effect, hang up. Microsoft is not going to call you and say, hey, we've detected a virus on your computer because, well, frankly, Microsoft doesn't care about you. Do not give anything of value to anyone. Okay. If your bank calls you and wants to confirm your ATM PIN card passcode, hang up and call them back. Okay. Call them back at a number you know is theirs. So little limited on time today. I wanted to come into our session today and hopefully share with you some information that you haven't heard before, that is helpful to you. And please pass on some of these tips to your family members. And, don't be ashamed if you become the victim of a cyber crime. There's no such thing as perfect security. It happens to the best of us, but be aware of these scams and don't allow yourself to be victimized. So with that, do we have any questions?
Let's open it up for questions. And Angela, I don't know if you're seeing hands in the air in the room, if you can kind of be the docent there.
Well, I do see one. The question is, what would you recommend hospitals do when they get hacked and ransomware is demanded for them to continue functioning? Well, what I would recommend is that hospitals hire IT staffs that are prepared to respond for these kinds of attacks. These attacks are nothing new. And, restoring backups, validated, safe backups and its restoration is faster and less expensive and less dangerous to society than paying, a $60 million ransom. So don't pay the ransom.
Mark, another question that we got on the chat function, and this is fair. The first advice is don't click on the link, but what happens if you do click on the link? What do you do? What's your advice then?
Yeah. So let's say you click on the link and you see like a weird error message. Don't pass that around to every one of your coworkers. Okay. If something seems unusual, turn off your computer. If you're on a laptop, pull the battery, get it off the network, especially if you're in a work environment. If you're at home, shut it down, maybe call, an IT service center, if something weird is happening. Okay. If there's unusual behavior, if you're sitting there and your mouse starts moving or windows start moving without your help, that's a big problem. When I was in federal law enforcement, I used to call that a clue. So if you see something weird, it's because it's weird, and it's because something is happening that shouldn't be happening.
Mark, let me try. We've got a couple more questions here in the chat. Let's see if we can address those, and then I'll turn it back to Angela and Valerie. But what can you recommend malware defense providers for personal computers? And if that's not something you do, I understand that. But if you have thoughts on that.
Yeah. So just know that antivirus and anti-malware, it doesn't really work, right? Because if it did, we wouldn't be reading about these significant data breaches every single day. but they're better than nothing. Okay. So go with a well-known antivirus, anti-malware. Windows comes with Bitdefender. I don't have any problems with that. But you need to know that sometimes we're lulled into a false sense of security. These programs are not perfect, and it doesn't mean you can now ignore best practices. It just means that hopefully this antivirus program catches something. You're still responsible.
Two more questions, and then so this one is: do antivirus platforms know that someone's reading your emails?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Could you ask it to me again?
I can try, but I'm just reading from what
Sure.
what question was asked. But if you get, let's call it Norton, right, on your system, does Norton figure out that somebody else has nefariously accessed your emails and sort of alert to that, or not? And again, that's a platform specific thing. But more generically is the question, Mark.
Yeah. So, usually not. What they will do is these programs are designed to determine whether or not known malware is on your system and running. Okay. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be scanning everything or reporting back to the mothership or anything, like that. These programs are far from great. Again, they're better than doing nothing. So I do recommend, doing your own research, investing in a program like, anti-malware programs, maybe Semantic for your antivirus. I don't want to sound like a shill because I don't like, recommending products or anything like that. But 99.9% of all malware in the world will not run on Apple computers. So if you are running an Apple computer at home, at your business, kudos to you, because maybe you didn't realize it, but you're far safer right out of the box without paying for any other software. You're far safer right out of the box than most Windows systems.
Thank you, Mark. And I'm going to smush two questions into one. All right. So, what are your thoughts on payment apps like Venmo, for example, use them? And then the other is, is it fair to think that we're getting some of these phishing emails from friends or things that look like friends? And that's kind of a vague question because I'm not quite sure I'm reading it right. But two very different questions, Mark.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna jump in on the friends email thing, okay? Because this is a true story. Less than 2 months ago, I had lunch scheduled with a friend of mine here in Minnesota who happens to be a judge, and we were going to go to lunch. And the morning of our scheduled lunch, I got an email from the judge saying, "Mark, I need your help. I am in Spain."
Oh.
And I have already checked out of my hotel. My passport has been stolen. My credit cards have been stolen. I am in a real bind here. Can I please ask you to go to Western Union and send me $2,000? I'm good for it, please. So I thought, the judge ditched me for lunch. What the heck? Come on. I know you're busy, but I'm busy too. So on the outside chance that the judge would make it from Spain back to Minnesota that morning, I showed up for lunch, and so did the judge. And I said, "Hey, Judge, how'd you get here so fast?" "Well, what are you talking about?" "Well, I thought you were in Spain." What's this about?" I said, "Well, here, let me show you the email you just sent me." Oh my gosh. Well, 3 of his friends sent the money to help him out and lost the money. What had happened is hackers had tricked the judge into clicking on a link, downloaded something that's known as a keylogger. So when you log into a website to like check your email, and the judge had an @AOL.com email address. So that's kind of, that's kind of impressive if you ask me. I didn't even know they were still in business, and had gotten into his email account, went to his contact list and sent that email begging for money to everyone in his address book. So you got to be careful. Even your friends can be dangerous. Okay. So, just because it's from a known individual, don't think that everything's on the up and up.
Mark, thank you, thank you, thank you. We could go on all day with questions, but we've run out of time. Please, Rotarians, thank Mark Lanterman for his time and his wisdom and his joy in entertaining and educating us all. Angela, back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sorry, we just needed to turn the volume down on the television. Mark, thanks so much for coming and being with us today. That was a fantastic and terrifying presentation.